Hello, Steve White, TrekBoy89 for Steve Arts89, Star Trek's alleged gatekeeper. I just watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 1, Strange New Worlds. Overall it was good, but there were some issues. Some small ones I expected, some other ones I didn't quite expect. The series is literally haunted by the ghost of Discovery. The show Star Trek Discovery and the actual ship and their actions. Particularly in this episode. Now, the show starts off with an alien race encountering the Federation, a Federation starship, I think it's the Archer, and their first contact. So it's very brief, and then we go to Earth, and Pike is basically hooking up with a captain he knows, and debating whether or not to go back to the ship. They've got one more week of dry dock, and that's when he has to decide whether he goes back and takes command of the ship. He's watching The Day the Earth Stood Still, and it's fairly well done. He's out riding, and then a shuttle comes, and Admiral April basically tells him, Una is missing, we need you back now, we're sending the ship out, we're cutting the dry dock a week short, you're just going to have to, miss out on all the extra little fine-tuning that the ship needed, we need you to go now. And of course he says yes, because it's Una. And then he contacts Spock. Now Spock is in the middle of his engagement, because T'Pring proposes to him. I thought they were betrothed and promised to each other from... I thought they were an arranged marriage, so I'm not sure how that works. But she proposed to him, they went back home, and they're about to, I guess Vulcans don't wait till they get married to, do that. So he gets the call, and he basically is like, it's Una, we have to go. So they go. They get on the ship. There's a little moment where they actually mention Lieutenant Kirk, because the people on the roster aren't there yet, because obviously they weren't prepared to leave. And I'm like, is Kirk a lieutenant? Was he supposed to be on that ship and now he ends up on the Farragut because of this mission diverts him or something? Is that why he's in the later series? Blah, blah, blah. Didn't think too much about it. Now, they need to disguise themselves as these aliens. They get to the planet, and what they realise is that this alien planet hasn't actually achieved warp drive yet. They've created a warp bomb from warp technology somehow, and that's what Una detected and what they went to investigate without realizing what it was. They thought that there was first contact because they thought this race had discovered warp technology when they actually had created a bomb. So they have to look like aliens. Oddly enough, La'an, who seems too young to be a number one, because she's basically standing in as the number one while they go look for Una. And she actually already knows Una because Una rescued her as a child because her family was killed by the Gorn, and she survived due to some weird ritual, and that's how she knows Una. So she doesn't mention this to Pike though, because she's afraid he thinks it'll bias her or something. So she doesn't trust him right away. She has issues with people. So they have to be changed to look like the aliens. There's a problem with Spock's. It doesn't work on him. It keeps wearing off, which is very painful, and he keeps reverting back to his normal appearance. They break in, they find Una, and there's a weird moment with that where they need to give Spock a booster, but they have to beam it down, and it's like they beam it into Spock, and it changes him right when he's getting his eye scanned. I don't understand how that works. It doesn't seem to make sense to me, because there was a time process and a time period in the change, so I don't know. But it doesn't last long. He ends up reverting back to a Vulcan anyway. But they get in, they find Una, they're going to escape, and what they discover, what Una informs them is, we gave them the warp bomb, we gave them warp drive. Basically, it was all going good for about 35 minutes, and then Discovery comes into it. Literally, that planet is a light year away from where they opened up the rift to send discovery into the future, which they didn't really need to do because they'd already destroyed the AIs and everything. So enough of that. Basically, this race somehow learned through their scans and visuals of this giant battle with over 100 ships how to what warp was basically, and they managed to reverse engineer a bomb, which they're going to use against their enemies because they, like us, are in the middle of they're in the middle of a civil war. We are in the beginning of a civil war probably on Earth, which in this future, in this Star Trek, is the beginning of the Third World War. We have a civil war which turns into nuclear war basically, and they actually show that on screen. They actually show January 6th, and now I'm left, so I'm not bothered by this, I'm not triggered by this, but other people are going to be insane over this because they literally showed today's politics literally in the episode and picked a side and said that's the enemy, and I'm like, oh, people are going to go crazy over this. I agree with Pike's, I agree with this interpretation of history and where we're going, and it does scare me. So, like I said, I'm not triggered or bothered by it because I'm not right, I'm left. So that's interesting. And basically he gives this, he beams everyone back and he just says, look, General Order 1 be damned, we basically, he feels responsible. We interfered, we gave this world the ability to destroy itself. We have to do something. You know, we've already intervened, we have to fix it. And part of me is like, yes, I kind of feel like that kind of, yes. And the other part of me is like, no, General Order 1, you're just going to make it worse. So basically, he talks to them and they're like, no, we've got the bigger stick, we're going to use it, we have to. Because that's their mentality. Might is right, we can, so we will. And he's like, okay. And he voice activates his communicator to basically tell the Enterprise to beam into orbit, warp into orbit, whatever, and show them who has the bigger stick. And it's us. So they basically bully them into peace and joining the Federation, and give them something to aspire to. I shouldn't say bully, but give them something to aspire to instead of war. It's like there's more than just you two. There's a whole, galaxy of people out there, and you can join us, and we can help you sort out all your problems. And it's not just you two anymore. So they end their civil war, and this is the point where he actually shows human history and how he says, "Look, this is what we did wrong. Don't do this." Now you can do that if you want, but you could also just join us where we are now, skip all that, and come join us where we are now. So it's very current day political, and the fact that they mention Discovery, because Burnham is mentioned early in the episode where Pike asks Spock how he is. He says, every time I come into space, it just reminds me of losing my sister, basically. And he's like, yes, I miss her too. I'm like, oh, they had to mention it, didn't they? But yeah, because I was thinking they can easily just not mention Discovery. They're not actually allowed to, and there's no reason why it has to come up at all. But of course they brought it up there. But that sort of made sense. It's his sister, blah, blah, blah. But then this part where they actually call back to, where Discovery left and where they left it off at the end of season 2. It is a little bit of a slap in the face to the people who wanted Star Trek without Discovery, and just we want a new Star Trek and we want to just forget about all the stuff Discovery did and just go on into the future. They're dragging Discovery behind, and literally, Discovery literally caused the problem, and now is sort of, it's kind of ironic, and I'm like, is that the writer trying to do that, or are they not aware of the irony of what they're doing here? But that's basically how it ends. They choose peace, they join us, and Pike realizes, maybe knowing my fate doesn't mean I can't change it, or I can live with it. It doesn't. So he seems to have some sort of, because he's very depressed at the start, very dark, and it gets to the point where he feels like, I'm not trapped in this, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. He seems to have some sort of realization that, or some comes to some, not closure, but he just comes to terms with it on some level and is able to function. Because for a while there, he's second guessing himself and not functioning very well. Now they get their crew back. The people who weren't there yet, everyone's on board, and we actually get Samuel Kirk. So Kirk's brother, Captain Kirk's older brother, is actually one of the crew members. So I didn't see that coming, didn't hear about it, didn't know about it. I think he was actually in one of the trailers, but we didn't realise it was him. Kind of surprised, not totally surprised, but kind of surprised at the same time. It's more than 10 years beforehand. I don't know how that's going to play. I kind of felt like some of the characters were a bit too young, especially La'an to be like number one for this episode. She looks and seems so young. She seems like a teenager, or she seems like 20. I don't know how old the actual actress is, how long she's been acting, or how long the character has been in Starfleet, but yeah. So that's the end of the episode. Basically, they get everyone on the bridge, and they're like, what's the mission? He's like, to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Let's go, hit it. And that's the end of the episode. We do have a trailer which shows most of the scenes about the episode with the comet in the next episode. A few little, it's called This Season, and you see a few little other bits from other episodes, but it's mostly the next coming episode. And overall, the tone was good, the energy was good, the lightheartedness was good. It wasn't a knockoff of the Orville. It wasn't trying to be comedy. There was one scene where they did beam up a couple of people that they stole their clothes from, and they woke up, and one of them went running through the ship, and Nurse Chapel had to chase him down, and Uhura sort of tricked him into talking about something, distracting him. That was all played for comedy, but it wasn't like over the top or anything. There were a few little moments that were funny, but so this whole, it's copying the Orville, no. It has a better energy, it has a better tone, it feels like Star Trek. It actually feels like Star Trek. A couple of episodes of Discovery have kind of felt like Star Trek. A few moments in Picard have felt like Star Trek, but this felt like an episode of Star Trek. I do feel like they've hit the right note, but story-wise, script-wise, there are some little issues here and there, and how much they bring Discovery into it, how much they bring politics into it, things like that could be very divisive with Star Trek fans and in general. But I did enjoy it. I wasn't bothered by the politics because I agree with what they were saying. People who disagree with that are going to lose their minds. They will not be able to watch the episode. They will switch it off. I was like, okay with it. So yeah, there is a problem because it makes the show divisive, and it doesn't make it like the original Star Trek was a humanist, version of like our future where, everyone could watch, everyone could listen, everyone could sort of see. They'd show both sides. This was very one-sided. I'm on that side. I agree with it, but I don't think that's good overall for the series. So, and that was sort of hinted at a few times by people. Also, like the Discovery being acknowledged and so forth. So everything I've heard pretty much was right, and I did like the episode. I think I'm going to like the show, but there are still some issues. But the bigger issues, I feel like they've resolved the bigger issues with the show. Now it's just more little petty things, like bringing up Discovery just to remind us that it exists, even though we would really like to forget it exists and move on. They're not going to let us do that, and that probably has something to do with the fact that Kurtzman wrote the story and was still producing all that. They're not going to let us forget about their show. They're still going to they're going to hold on to that because they're not going to admit any failures or any issues, even though it is Discovery's failure in this episode that caused the whole problem. And the irony of that, like I said, is that lost on them, or did they do it deliberately? I don't know. But I'm going to go because I don't want this to get past 15 minutes. I wasn't expecting to talk this long, but I was going to do a short review and a long review. But yeah, here I am, 14 minutes, nearly 15 minutes. But I'm relieved because it's good, it's enjoyable. But I just wish they had, there's a few things I know that are issues, like current day politics and Discovery with other fans, Star Trek fans, and they didn't avoid them. they went straight at them. So that's a bad sign, so much as long-term sort of divisive sort of issues. But in the actual episode itself, it didn't bother me. Like I said, the politics don't bother me because they're my politics. So I'm left, so I'm not bothered by it. But people who are right are going to lose their minds. And I can just hear people now. And the other thing I meant to mention was there seems to be Chief Kyle in this episode who is a young Asian man, when the Chief Kyle in the original Star Trek was, I think, a red-headed white guy. So I think they might have race-swapped another person, unless it's just another transporter chief with the same name. We'll have to look into that, because that would mean this is definitely a reboot, because people are saying the Captain April, Admiral April, is not a reboot issue because he was in the animated series and that's not canon. Well, the original series where Mr. Kyle was definitely canon, so we'll have to look into that. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.